The chains felt heavy on Elena Vasquez's wrists. She stood in the center of a massive chamber that floated in space, surrounded by stars on all sides. The walls were made of something clear and strong, allowing everyone to see the neutron star spinning outside. Its light painted everything in shades of blue and white. 12 tall chairs formed a circle around her. On each chair sat a different alien being. Some looked like crystals that caught the light. Others had too many arms or eyes that glowed in the dark. These were the rulers of the galaxy, the Galactic Tribunal. They had been in charge for thousands of years, longer than human civilization had even existed. Elena was the last human commander left to speak. Her uniform was torn and dirty from 3 months of imprisonment. Her dark hair hung loose around her face. She was tired, but she kept her back straight and her eyes forward. The lead judge was named Vexthor. He was made of living crystal, each piece catching light and throwing it back in rainbow colors. His voice sounded like wind chimes when he spoke, but the translator in Elena's ear turned it into cold, formal words. "Commander Elena Vasquez of the human species," Vexthor said, "we have reviewed all evidence. We have listened to your arguments. We have given your kind more chances than any species before you. The decision of this tribunal is final." Elena's heart beat faster, but she showed nothing on her face. She had known this moment was coming. They all had. "Humanity is declared a chaos species," Vexthor continued. "You expand too quickly. You fight too readily. You refuse to follow the laws that keep peace in this galaxy. Worst of all, you will not accept the authority of those who came before you." Another judge leaned forward. This one looked like a floating mass of tentacles with a single golden eye in the center. Its name was Judge Mordaith. "We have seen species like yours before," it said through the translator. "Species that think strength and aggression are virtues. They always bring destruction. Always." Elena wanted to laugh at that, wanted to scream, but she kept quiet and waited. "Therefore," Vexthor said, and his crystalline body seemed to grow brighter, "the sentence is extinction. All human worlds will be sterilized within 1 solar rotation. All human ships will be destroyed. All human genetic material will be eliminated from the galactic gene pool. This is for the safety and peace of all civilized species." The other judges nodded or made whatever gestures their species used to show agreement. Elena felt the guards behind her tense, probably expecting her to break down or beg for mercy. She did neither. "You're making a mistake," Elena said quietly. "Silence," one of the guards hissed. It was a Krell, a species that looked like walking insects with armor plating. But Vexthor raised one crystalline hand. "Let her speak. It will be the last time any human voice is heard in this chamber." Elena took a deep breath. She looked at each judge in turn, meeting their eyes or eye clusters or whatever they used to see. "You call us a chaos species because we won't kneel," she said. "Because we fought back when you told us where we could and couldn't go. Because we asked questions when you said to stay quiet. You say we're dangerous because we refuse to accept that your way is the only way. Your point?" Vexthor asked. "My point is that you're not judging us for being dangerous. You're judging us for being free." Elena's voice grew stronger. "Every species you've allowed to survive is one that bent the knee. That accepted limits. That stopped growing and exploring and asking what if. You've built a galaxy of order, yes, but it's dead order. Nothing changes. Nothing grows. You've been in charge for 10,000 years, and what's different? What's new? Peace is new," Judge Mordaith said. "Before the tribunal, there were constant wars. And now there's just slow death," Elena shot back. "I've read your histories. I know about the progenitors, the first civilization. They explored everything. Built wonders. Then they vanished, and you all scrambled to grab what they left behind. You built your power on ruins and secrets, and now you're so afraid of losing it that you kill anyone who might challenge you." The chamber went very quiet. Several judges shifted uncomfortably. "You speak of things you don't understand," Vexthor said, but something in his tone had changed. "The progenitors are gone. They have been gone for 50,000 years. Whatever they were, whatever they did, it has nothing to do with the present, doesn't it?" Elena asked. "You claim authority over the whole galaxy, but what right do you have? Just that you were here first? That you're older? Age doesn't equal wisdom. Sometimes it just means you've been wrong for longer." A different judge stood up. This one looked almost human, but its skin was silver and its eyes were completely black. "Enough of this," it said. "The human tries to delay the inevitable with philosophy. The sentence stands, Elena nodded slowly. She had known her words wouldn't change anything. But she had needed to say them anyway. Fine, she said. Kill us all. Wipe out every man, woman, and child. Destroy every human city and farm and ship. But know this, she paused, making sure they were all listening. History will remember this as your greatest mistake. Because the thing about humans, we survive, we endure, and we never ever forget. You won't survive this, Vexthor said quietly. No one survives a tribunal sentence. We'll see, Elena said. The guards grabbed her arms and started pulling her toward the exit. She didn't resist. There was no point. But as she walked, she kept her head high. Vexthor watched her go. He had been a judge for 3,000 years. He had seen hundreds of species stand where the human now stood. Some begged. Some cried. Some raged and threatened. But something about Commander Vasquez bothered him. It wasn't her words, though those had been bold enough. It was the certainty in her eyes. Like she knew something he didn't. After the human was gone, the other judges began to leave. But Vexthor stayed in his seat, looking out at the spinning neutron star. He was old enough to remember fragments of the progenitor legends. Stories passed down through generations. Most judges dismissed them as myth. But one story kept coming back to him now. Something about a test, about species being pushed to their limits, about the awakened ones who would come when all hope seemed lost. He shook his head, making his crystal body chime softly. It was foolishness. Ancient superstition. The progenitors were gone, and they had left nothing behind but ruins and broken technology that no one could use anymore. Still, as he finally rose to leave, Vexthor couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. That the human's words had been less a plea and more a warning. He pushed the thought away. The sentence would be carried out. In one solar rotation, humanity would be nothing but dust and memory. The galaxy would return to order. Everything would be fine. But deep in his ancient mind, in a place where logic couldn't quite reach, Vexthor felt the first stirrings of doubt. The prison transport ship shook violently as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Elena was thrown against the wall of her cell, her chains rattling. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the corridor. "What's happening?" someone shouted. It was another prisoner, a human named Marcus from the colony on New Terra. "Don't know," Elena called back. She pressed her face against the small window in her cell door. Through it, she could see Krell guards running back and forth, their insect-like bodies clicking with agitation. Then the ship shook again, harder this time. The artificial gravity failed for a moment, and Elena felt her stomach drop as she floated off the floor. When gravity returned, she hit the ground hard. Somewhere, something exploded. The lights went out completely. In the darkness, Elena heard screaming, both human and alien. She heard the hiss of atmosphere venting into space. The emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in dim blue light. Elena's door suddenly slid open. The power failure must have released the locks. She didn't question her luck. She ripped the chains from the wall where they had been mounted and ran into the corridor. Other cell doors were opening too. Prisoners stumbled out, confused and scared. A Krell guard appeared at the end of the hallway, raising its weapon. Elena didn't think. She swung the chains like a whip, catching the guard across its face. It went down and she grabbed its weapon. "Everyone to the escape pods," she shouted. She led a group of prisoners through the damaged ship. Fires burned in several compartments. Bodies floated in areas where the gravity had failed. The ship was dying and they needed to get off it fast. They reached the pod bay. Most of the pods were already gone, launched automatically when the ship was damaged. Only 3 remained. "Get in," Elena ordered. She helped load prisoners into 2 of the pods. When they were full, she launched them into space. Then she climbed into the last pod alone. As the pod separated from the transport ship, Elena looked back. The ship was breaking apart, torn by explosions from the inside. She realized what must have happened. Somewhere, somehow, human resistance fighters had managed to sabotage the vessel. They had saved her, even if they hadn't meant to. The pod's automatic systems engaged, searching for the nearest habitable planet. Elena strapped herself in and waited. She was hurt, exhausted, and alone, but she was free. The pod traveled for 2 days before it found a planet. It wasn't on any star charts that Elena recognized. The computer called it Kepler 442b, a world far out in the outer reaches where almost no one went anymore. The landing was rough. The pod's heat shields barely held as it plunged through the atmosphere. When it finally crashed into the sand, the impact knocked Elena unconscious. She woke to silence. Her body ached everywhere. She checked herself carefully and found cuts and bruises, but nothing broken. The pod's door was jammed, so she kicked it until it gave way. Hot, dry air rushed in. Elena climbed out and looked around. Sand. Endless sand in all directions, painted red by the setting sun. The sky was orange and purple, and twin moons hung low on the horizon. The pod's computer was barely functioning, but she managed to access its sensors. They showed ruins nearby. Big ruins, bigger than anything humans had ever built. Elena had heard stories about the progenitors, the first civilization. Everyone had. They were supposed to be myths, legends, fairy tales to explain the ancient ruins found on some worlds. But looking at the massive structures rising from the sand in the distance, Elena wondered if the stories were true. She had no choice but to head toward the ruins. The pod's supplies would last maybe 3 days. She needed to find water and shelter. Walking through the desert was hard. The sand was deep and unstable. The air was thin and Elena's lungs burned with each breath. But she kept going because that's what humans did. They kept going. It took her 6 hours to reach the ruins. As she got closer, she realized how massive they were. The walls were smooth and dark, made of something that wasn't quite metal and wasn't quite stone. They rose hundreds of meters into the air, covered in symbols and patterns that hurt to look at directly. Elena found an entrance, a doorway tall enough for something 3 times her size. Inside was darkness. She activated the small light from her emergency kit and stepped through. The moment her foot crossed the threshold, everything changed. The walls began to glow with soft blue light. It spread from where she stood, racing along the walls and ceiling like water flowing uphill. Okay, Elena whispered to herself. That's not creepy at all. She moved deeper into the structure. The hallways were huge and empty, but they didn't feel abandoned. They felt like they were waiting. Waiting for something, or someone. Elena found herself in a chamber so large she couldn't see the other side. In the center of the chamber stood a platform, and on the platform was something that made her stop breathing. It was a sphere, but not a normal sphere. It seemed to shift and change as she looked at it, like it existed in more dimensions than 3. Colors moved across its surface, colors that didn't have names. Sometimes it looked solid. Sometimes it looked like it was made of light. Sometimes it looked like a hole in reality itself. The walls of the chamber were covered in writing. Thousands of languages, maybe millions, all saying different things. But as Elena walked closer, she realized they were all saying the same thing in different ways. When all others fail, the inheritors shall rise. The phrase was repeated over and over in scripts she recognized and scripts she didn't. Human languages, alien languages, languages that probably belonged to species long dead. Elena reached the platform. She knew she should be careful, should think this through, but something in her chest pulled her forward like a compass needle finding north. She reached out and touched the sphere. Light exploded through the chamber. It was white and gold in colors that shouldn't exist. Elena screamed as power rushed through her body, burning and freezing at the same time. Information flooded her mind, more than any human brain should be able to hold. She saw the galaxy as it had been 50,000 years ago. She saw the progenitors, beings of light and thought who had built wonders across 1,000,000 worlds. She saw them experimenting, testing, searching for something. She saw them seed certain worlds with genetic markers, saw them create the conditions for life to evolve in specific ways, saw them leave behind relics and ruins and tests, and she understood. The progenitors hadn't vanished. They had transcended, moved beyond physical form into something else. But before they left, they had set up trials, tests for the species that would come after them. Most species failed the test without even knowing they were being tested, but a few species had potential. A few were marked as inheritors, and humanity was one of them. The test was simple and brutal. Could a species survive against impossible odds? Could they persist when faced with extinction? Would they fight or surrender when the universe itself seemed against them? The voice came then, speaking directly into Elena's mind. It was old beyond measure and yet somehow gentle. Verification complete. Human genome confirmed. Inheritance protocol initiated. Welcome, daughter of Terra. Elena fell to her knees as the sphere bonded with her at a cellular level. She felt it becoming part of her. felt her becoming part of it. Power beyond imagination was being placed in her hands, and with it came a choice, a terrible, wonderful choice. The light finally faded. Elena knelt on the platform, gasping for breath. The sphere was gone, or rather it was inside her now. She could feel it, warm and alive, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. She stood up slowly. Outside, she knew the tribunal was hunting down the last humans. Earth's colonies were burning. Her people were dying. But now she had a weapon. Now she had hope. Now she had a choice to make. Elena spent 3 days in the temple learning to use the relic. It was hard at first. The knowledge that flooded her mind was too much, like trying to drink from a waterfall. She had headaches that made her vision blur. Sometimes she would black out for hours, but slowly she learned to control it. The relic wasn't just power. It was information. Star maps showing the locations of progenitor technology scattered across the galaxy. Access codes to systems that had been dead for 50,000 years. And most importantly, the truth about the tribunal. Elena sat cross-legged on the temple floor, her eyes closed, accessing memories that weren't hers. She saw the progenitors conducting their experiments. They had visited thousands of worlds, nudging evolution in certain directions. They were looking for something specific. Species that could adapt, species that wouldn't give up, species that had fire in them. The inheritors must be forged in adversity, the progenitor record said. Only through suffering do they learn strength. Only through loss do they learn value. Only through facing extinction do they learn to truly live. The tribunal species had all been tested too. The crystalline Vexthar, the tentacled Mordath, the silver-skinned Kelthans. All of them. And all of them had failed. When faced with extinction-level threats, they had chosen survival over growth. They had built walls instead of bridges. They had stopped exploring and started hiding. The progenitors had left them with their ruins and their technology, but had moved on to seed new worlds. Humanity was one of the newer experiments. But the progenitors had been gone for a long time before humans even learned to make fire. They had left their tests running automatically, watching from whatever place they had transcended to. And now, finally, one of the test species had reached the relic. But the knowledge Elena gained also showed her something terrible. Something that made her blood run cold. This wasn't the first time the tribunal had encountered an inheritor species. It was the 8th. 7 times before, a species had shown the traits the progenitors were looking for. 7 times the tribunal had declared them a chaos species and wiped them out. The tribunal knew what the tests meant. They knew that inheritor species were meant to replace them. So they committed genocide to maintain their power. Elena opened her eyes. Her hands were shaking with rage. All those species, all those civilizations gone, murdered. Because the tribunal was too afraid to give up control. She stood up and walked to the temple entrance. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly under the alien sky. Somewhere up there, beyond the atmosphere, her people were dying. The tribunal's fleets were systematically destroying every human world. Elena reached out with her mind, touching the relic's power. She could feel the progenitor weapons scattered throughout the galaxy, ships that could move faster than anything modern science could build, weapons that could crack planets, shields that made matter itself flow like water around them. She could unleash it all, could strike at the tribunal before they even knew what was happening, could burn their worlds the way they were burning human worlds. The power was there. All she had to do was take it. Elena's hands clenched into fists. It would be so easy, so justified. They had declared war on humanity. They were committing genocide. Fighting back with overwhelming force would just be self-defense. But would it make her any different from them? She thought about what her father had told her when she joined the military. Power is easy, Elena. Any fool can destroy. The hard part is building something worth keeping. Elena sat down on the temple steps and put her head in her hands. She was so tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of running. Tired of watching people die. A ship's engine cut through her thoughts. Elena's head snapped up. Someone was landing nearby. She reached out with the relic's senses and felt the ship's systems. It was human. A small fighter, badly damaged. She ran toward the landing site. The ship touched down roughly, kicking up clouds of red sand. The canopy opened and a man climbed out, moving like every bone in his body hurt. Admiral Chen? Elena couldn't believe it. Admiral David Chen looked up at her. His face was burned on one side and his uniform was torn. but his eyes lit up when he saw her. "Commander Vasquez," he said, and his voice was rough with smoke damage. "Thank God. We thought you were dead. How did you find me?" "We didn't. I was running from a tribunal hunter. Lost them in a nebula and came out here to hide." He looked around at the ruins. "What is this place?" Elena helped him toward the temple. As they walked, she told him everything. The relic, the progenitors, the truth about the tribunal. Chen listened without interrupting, though his expression grew darker with every word. Inside the temple, Elena used the relic to access medical technology hidden in the walls, progenitor healing systems that knitted Chen's burns and repaired his damaged lungs. "How many humans are left?" Elena asked as the machines worked. Chen's face went grim. "Maybe 2 million, scattered across a dozen hidden colonies. The tribunal destroyed Earth 3 days ago." Elena felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. Earth, gone. The blue marble where humanity was born. 7 billion people, all dead. "We're losing," Chen continued. "Every day they find more of us. We can hurt them, but we can't win. We're just trying to survive long enough to get some people away. Maybe find an uncharted world where we can hide and rebuild over generations." "No," Elena said quietly. "No. No hiding. No running." Elena looked at the Admiral and her eyes reflected the blue glow of the temple walls. "We're going to end this, but not the way they'd expect. Not with weapons, then how?" "With the truth," Elena said. "The tribunal's power is based on a lie. That they're the rightful rulers of the galaxy, that they maintain order and peace, but they're just scared old species holding on to power they were never meant to have. The whole galaxy needs to know what they've done, what they are," Chen frowned. "Even if we tell everyone, who would believe us? The tribunal has been in charge for thousands of years. They'll believe us because I can prove it." Elena touched her chest where the relic pulsed. "I can access the beacon network. The progenitors built it so they could communicate across the entire galaxy instantly. Every world, every ship, every station. I can send a message that everyone will see at the same time." "Showing what?" "Everything. The progenitor records. The tests. The 7 species the tribunal murdered. The truth about why they're really trying to wipe us out." Elena's voice grew harder. "And I can shut down their technology. The tribunal built their weapons and ships using progenitor designs they don't really understand. I can lock them out of their own systems." Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, though it was a sad smile. "They'll try to kill us anyway. Truth won't stop their troops or their ships in orbit. No, but it will stop their allies from helping them, and it will give other species the courage to stand up." Elena looked out at the desert. "The tribunal's power is based on fear. Fear that they're invincible. Fear that there's no alternative. Once that fear is gone, they're just 12 old species trying to control a galaxy that's passed them by." "It's risky," Chen said. "Everything is risky. But sitting here and dying slowly? That's not who we are." Elena turned back to him. "Admiral, where's the human fleet?" "What's left of it. We're gathering at the Nexus station. It's our last stronghold. Maybe 500 ships, most of them damaged. How long until the tribunal finds it?" "A week, maybe less," Elena nodded. "Then that's where we make our stand. That's where we broadcast the truth. Can you get me there?" Chen looked at his damaged fighter. "Not in that. But if this temple has progenitor technology, maybe it has a ship." Elena smiled. She had seen the hangar in the Relic's memories. Deep below the temple, preserved in perfect vacuum, waiting for an inheritor to claim it. "It has a ship," she said. "And Admiral, you're going to love it." They spent the next 2 days preparing. Elena learned to pilot the progenitor ship, which responded to her thoughts as much as her hands. Chen sent encrypted messages to the human fleet, telling them to hold position at the Nexus station. Help was coming. On the 3rd day, they left the temple. The ship rose from the desert like a silver dream, silent and perfect. Elena took one last look at the ruins where her life had changed. "Thank you," she whispered to the progenitors, wherever they were. Then she turned the ship toward the stars and prepared to save her species. The Nexus station hung in space like a broken crown. It had once been a major trading hub, before the tribunal declared humanity a chaos species. Now it was humanity's last fortress, and it was dying. Elena's progenitor ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel on the edge of the system. Through the view screen, she could see the station surrounded by hundreds of human vessels. Most were military ships, but there were civilian transports too. cargo haulers, even a few pleasure yachts. Anything that could fly and fight. Beyond them, arranged in a perfect sphere, was the tribunal fleet. Thousands of warships, their weapons charged and ready. They outnumbered the humans 50-1. They're just waiting, Chen said from the co-pilot seat. They could attack at any time, but they want everyone to see this. They want to make an example of us. Elena's jaw tightened. Then let's give them a show they won't forget. She opened a communication channel to the human fleet. This is Commander Elena Vasquez. We're coming in. The response was immediate. Dozens of voices talking at once, asking questions, shouting with relief or confusion. Finally, one voice cut through the noise. Vasquez, this is Captain Sarah Kim on the Independence. We heard you were dead. I got better, Elena said. Captain, I need you to clear a path to the station. And tell everyone to prepare for a galaxy-wide broadcast. What kind of broadcast? The kind that changes everything. Elena guided the progenitor ship through the human formation. Pilots gasped as they saw it. The ship was beautiful in a way that modern vessels couldn't match, all smooth curves and silver metal that seemed to shimmer with inner light. The tribunal fleet didn't react at first. Then Elena's sensors picked up activity in their command ship. They were trying to scan her vessel, trying to understand what it was. She felt a communication beam aimed at her ship. After a moment, the translator kicked in, and Vexthor's chiming voice filled the cabin. Unknown vessel, you are in violation of tribunal space. Identify yourself, Elena smiled without humor. Hello, Vexthor. Remember me? There was a long silence. Then, Commander Vasquez. You escaped execution, impressive, but it only delays the inevitable. Does it? I found something, Vexthor. Something your people have been afraid of for 50,000 years. Another pause. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. The progenitors. The tests. The inheritors. Elena's voice grew harder. The 7 species you murdered because you were afraid of them. The silence that followed was different. Heavier. You've found progenitor ruins. Vexthor said finally. Perhaps even some functional technology. It changes nothing. You're still going to die. Your entire species is still going to die. Maybe, Elena said. But first, the galaxy is going to learn the truth about you. She cut the connection and docked with the Nexus station. The station's command center was crowded with the remaining human leadership. Military officers, civilian governors, ship captains. They all looked exhausted and desperate. When Elena walked in with Admiral Chen, everyone went quiet. She moved to the central console and placed her hand on it. The relic pulsed inside her and she felt it connect with the station's systems. What's happening? Asked Governor Martinez, a small woman with gray hair and fierce eyes. I'm accessing the beacon network, Elena said. In about 5 minutes, every sentient being in the galaxy is going to receive a message. The tribunal won't be able to stop it or block it. What message? The truth. Elena closed her eyes and reached out through the relic. She felt the ancient network wake up, felt it spreading across the galaxy like a web of light. The progenitors had built it to span unimaginable distances, to connect every world they had touched. And now it was hers to use. She began gathering the data. Progenitor records showing the experiments, the tests, the marking of inheritor species. Historical files documenting the 7 previous inheritor species and their destruction by the tribunal. Genetic analyses proving humanity's connection to the progenitor legacy. And most damning of all, the tribunal's own secret files. Records they thought were encrypted and hidden. Plans for genocide. Discussions about eliminating competition. 50,000 years of crimes committed in the name of order and peace. The relic pulled it all together into a coherent narrative that any species could understand, translating it into thousands of languages simultaneously. Broadcasting now, Elena said, across the galaxy. On every world and ship and station, screens suddenly lit up. Communication systems activated without being turned on. The message pushed through every channel, unstoppable. People saw the progenitors as they had been, beings of light and wonder. They saw the tests being set up, the species being marked. They saw the tribunal species fail their own tests, choosing stagnation over growth. They saw 7 extinct species, their art, their cultures, their achievements, and they saw how the tribunal had erased them all. Then they saw humanity, saw Earth and its colonies, saw humans struggling and fighting and refusing to give up, even when extinction seemed certain, saw them reach the relic and claim the inheritance. The message ended with Elena's face filling every screen. "My name is Commander Elena Vasquez," she said. "I'm human. The last of my species that will ever speak to you in peace or war. The tribunal has declared us a chaos species and sentenced us to extinction. They say it's because we're dangerous, because we won't accept their authority. But the truth is different. They're killing us because we passed a test they failed 50,000 years ago, because we're proof that they don't deserve the power they hold, because if we can become inheritors, then so can other species, and that terrifies them. The progenitors left their legacy for all of us, not just one species, not just the strong or the old or the connected, but for anyone brave enough to face the trials. Anyone willing to grow instead of hiding. Anyone who chooses hope over fear. We don't ask you to fight for us. We don't ask you to save us. We just ask you to know the truth. To see what the tribunal really is, and to decide for yourselves what kind of galaxy you want to live in." Elena opened her eyes in the command center. Around her, humans were staring at screens showing reactions from across the galaxy. On a Kelthan world, crowds were gathering in the streets. On a Vexthar station, workers had stopped working. On 100 worlds, people were talking, arguing, questioning. They're responding, Chen said quietly. "Some of them believe us. Some isn't enough," Governor Martinez said. "The tribunal fleet is still out there." As if hearing her words, the tribunal command ship sent another message. This time, Vexthor sounded different. Angry, afraid. "You've made a terrible mistake, Commander. You think the truth will save you? You think these other species will help you? They won't. They're sheep. They'll bleed and cry and do nothing while we finish what we started." "Maybe," Elena said, "but you won't finish it with progenitor technology." She reached out through the Relic, finding every piece of progenitor-based technology in the tribunal fleet. Their weapons, their shields, they're faster than light drives. The tribunal had built everything on foundations they didn't truly understand, using designs they'd reverse-engineered from ancient ruins, and now the true inheritor was taking it away. Elena sent the shutdown codes. Across the tribunal fleet, systems began failing. Weapons went offline. Shields dropped. Ships that had been powered by progenitor energy cores suddenly went dark. Alarms blared on 1,000 tribunal vessels. Crews panicked as their mighty warships became helpless metal shells drifting in space. In the command center, the humans watched in stunned silence as the most powerful fleet in the galaxy became completely helpless in seconds. "That's not possible," someone whispered. "It shouldn't be," Elena agreed. "But the progenitors built their technology with failsafes. Only inheritors can use it. The tribunal has been squatting on power that was never meant for them." Chen looked at her. "What now?" "Now we wait," Elena said. "The tribunal is toothless. Their allies are questioning them. The galaxy is watching, so we wait and see if they'll surrender, or if they'll force us to do something we'll all regret." On the tribunal command ship, Vexthor stared at his dead controls. 3,000 years as a judge, 3,000 years of power and authority, and it was all gone in an instant. He thought about the humans' words, about the inheritors, about the progenitor's legacy being meant for everyone. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was time for the old order to end. 6 months later, Elena stood in a rebuilt chamber where the Galactic Tribunal once passed judgment. The walls were still the same transparent material, still showing the stars, but everything else had changed. There were no more 12 high chairs arranged in a circle. Instead, there were hundreds of seats in tiers rising up like an amphitheater. Representatives from nearly every species in the galaxy filled those seats. Some Elena recognized, many she didn't. The old order had fallen. After the broadcast, the tribunal's authority had crumbled like a sandcastle in the tide. Species that had been silent for thousands of years suddenly found their voices. Worlds that had accepted tribunal rule without question started demanding answers. The 12 former judges had been given a choice: face trial for genocide or step down and help build something new. Most had chosen to step down. A few, like Vexthor, had chosen to stay and face the truth of what they'd done. Vexthor sat in one of the regular seats now, no different from anyone else. His crystalline body no longer glowed with power. He looked smaller somehow, older. Elena walked to the center of the chamber. She wore a simple uniform, nothing fancy. Admiral Chen stood beside her, along with Governor Martinez and Captain Kim, the last representatives of a species that had nearly been exterminated. But there were more humans in the audience. Survivors from the scattered colonies gathered together for the first time in months. 2 million humans left out of billions. The tribunal had taken so much from them. Elena had the power to make them pay. The relic gave her control over progenitor technology across the galaxy. She could have made the tribunal species extinct with a thought, could have burned their worlds the way they'd burned Earth, but that wasn't what humanity needed. And it wasn't what the galaxy needed either. A Kelthan representative stood up. Her silver skin caught the starlight. Commander Vasquez, we are gathered here to discuss the future of galactic governance. You hold the progenitor legacy. By right of inheritance, you could claim authority over all of us.
Will you?
Elena shook her head. No, that's not what the progenitors wanted. That's not what they left their legacy for. She touched her chest where the relic pulsed. It had become a part of her over these months, so integrated that she couldn't tell where she ended and it began. Through it, she could feel the ancient technology scattered across 1 million worlds, could access knowledge that made modern science look like children's drawings. The progenitors didn't want rulers. Elena continued. They wanted inheritors, but not just one species. They wanted all of us to inherit, to grow, to become something greater than we are. She gestured, and the relic projected holographic images into the air. The images showed temple ruins on dozens of worlds. Each one was different, designed for different species with different tests. There are progenitor temples throughout the galaxy, Elena said. Most have been sealed or ignored for thousands of years. But they're all functional. They're all waiting. Any species that wants to take the trials can do so. Any species that's willing to grow, to face their fears, to push beyond their limits, can claim part of the inheritance. Murmurs ran through the chamber. Some species looked excited. Others looked afraid. A Krell representative stood, its insect body clicking. And if we fail the trials? What then? Then you learn from failure and try again, Elena said. That's what trials are for. Not to separate the worthy from the unworthy, but to help everyone become better. But someone must maintain order, a Mordith representative said, its tentacles waving. Someone must have authority. Otherwise there will be chaos. Maybe, Elena admitted. But the old way didn't work. The tribunal claimed authority because they were old, because they had power. But age doesn't equal wisdom, and power doesn't equal right. She looked around the chamber at all the different species. We propose something new. A covenant. Not a tribunal that judges from above, but a council that serves from within. Representatives from every species chosen by their own people. Decisions made together, not imposed from above. And what of the progenitor technology? Asked a crystalline being from Vexthor's species. You control it all. Will you share it or hoard it? Elena smiled. We'll share it, but carefully. The progenitors didn't leave their technology lying around for anyone to grab. They left trials, tests, lessons. We'll do the same. Any species can access progenitor knowledge, but they have to earn it. Have to prove they understand the responsibility that comes with power. Who decides if they've earned it? Someone asked. The trials themselves, Elena said. The progenitors designed them to be fair. They test courage, wisdom, compassion, persistence. All the things that matter. The relic doesn't judge based on species or history. It judges based on who you are and what you're willing to become. Vexthor stood up slowly. Everyone in the chamber turned to look at him. Many species still hated the former judges for what they'd done, but Elena had insisted they be allowed to speak. Commander Vasquez is right, Vexthor said, his voice chiming softly. My species failed our trial 50,000 years ago. We chose safety over growth. We chose to preserve what we had rather than reach for something greater, and when we saw other species succeeding where we failed, we killed them rather than face our own inadequacy. He looked down at his crystalline hands. I have lived for 3,000 years. I have made many decisions, some good, some terrible, but the worst decision was believing that our way was the only way. That order was more important than progress. That peace through fear was better than peace through understanding. Vexthor looked up at Elena. The humans passed their trial. They faced extinction and chose defiance. They were given ultimate power and chose sharing over domination. They earned their inheritance. We should learn from them, not resent them. An old Kelton stood up. And what of justice? The tribunal killed 7 species, billions of beings. Should we simply forgive and move on? The chamber went quiet. This was the hard question. The one that had been hovering over everything for 6 months. Elena took a deep breath. No, we don't forget. We don't forgive just to make things easier. But we also don't let the past trap us in cycles of revenge. She gestured, and the relic projected new images. The progenitors kept records. Perfect, complete records of every species they encountered, including the 7 that the tribunal destroyed. Their languages, their cultures, their knowledge. Everything. The images showed alien cities, alien art, alien faces smiling at cameras that had stopped working long before humans learned to walk upright. "We can't bring them back," Elena said, and her voice was thick with emotion. "But we can remember them. We can study what they left behind. We can make sure the galaxy knows what was lost. And we can make absolutely certain it never happens again." She looked at Vexthor and the other former judges. "The tribunal members who committed these crimes will spend the rest of their lives helping us rebuild the archives of the extinct species, helping us understand what was stolen from the galaxy. It won't balance the scales. Nothing can, but it's a start." Governor Martinez stepped forward. "Humanity supports this proposal. We call it the Covenant of Ascension, not because we're ascending above others, but because we're all ascending together." Over the next hours, the representatives debated. Some species were enthusiastic. Others were cautious. A few were openly hostile, unable to let go of the old ways, but slowly a consensus formed. The Covenant would be established. The progenitor temples would be opened. The trials would be available to all, and a new council would govern, based on cooperation rather than domination. When the vote came, it wasn't unanimous. Nothing that important ever was. But it was enough. The galaxy had chosen change. As the session ended and representatives began to file out, Elena found herself standing alone at the center of the chamber, looking out at the stars. So many stars, so many worlds, so much potential. "Thinking deep thoughts?" Chen asked, walking over. Elena smiled. "Just wondering what the progenitors would think. If they're watching from wherever they transcended to." "I think they'd be proud," Chen said. "You took the power they offered and did something wise with it." "We did something wise with it," Elena corrected. "This wasn't just me. It was every human who refused to give up. Everyone who kept fighting when there was no logical reason to keep going." She turned away from the stars. "Come on, we have work to do. The first temple opening is next week. A Krell delegation wants to take their trial. Think they'll pass? I don't know. But that's the point. Everyone gets to try. Everyone gets a chance to become something more." As they walked toward the exit, Vexthor approached them, the old crystal being moved slowly, like every step hurt. "Commander Vasquez," he said, "I wanted to thank you." Elena raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For showing mercy. For choosing a harder path when an easier one was available. For proving that humanity deserved the inheritance." He paused. "And for giving my species a chance to redeem ourselves." Elena studied him for a moment. "Redemption isn't given, Vexthor. It's earned. Just like the inheritance, I know," he said. "That's why I'm asking permission to take the trial. To face whatever test my species failed so long ago." Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Permission granted. The temple on Vexthar Prime will open for you next month."